Hello and welcome to Inside Judicial Watch. I'm your host, Amelia Kane, and I'm sitting down with Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome, Amelia. Good to be with you.
Now, Judicial Watch has been providing analysis on the impeachment inquiry since the very beginning. Can you tell our viewers the process for impeachment and the impeachment inquiry?
Well, the process is terrible. There's nothing like it in American history in terms of an abuse of power by Congress to target a sitting president. The president doesn't have any due process rights. He's not able to confront any witnesses against him. He can't call his own witnesses. His attorneys weren't present at the secret depositions. So this whole show trial of a hearing we saw take place this week was kind of like the pinnacle of the corrupt process. And on the other hand, though, they never really wanted to have a hearing, so they were forced to be a bit more transparent because groups like Judicial Watch and other concerned Americans, obviously the President of the United States, has been saying, what's with the secrecy here? Why are all of the typical rights granted to a president during an impeachment process being denied this president? So they thought, well, maybe we need to pretend to be interested in transparency here. So they had the show trial yesterday that blew up in their faces.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that the impeachment inquiry is being conducted in a way that the framers intended in the Constitution?
Well, the framers intended the most significant crimes or high crimes and misdemeanors to be covered by impeachment, so that when the Congress went to impeach a president, for instance, that he did something like bribery or treason or another high crime misdemeanor like that, and there's no indication he did anything wrong, let alone anything that rises to the level of impeaching him, which is just a word for indictment, practically speaking. But the impetus would be to remove him from office. So they're asking to remove him from office less than a year before an election over a phone call and negotiations he had with a foreign government that turn out to be really much ado about nothing.
So would you say that this inquiry is not fair?
Fairness has nothing to do with this. This is a coup, and coups need secrecy. They need speed. They need suppression of the rights of those they're targeting. You see all of that here. Nancy Pelosi, when asked about the president's right to confront his accusers, a right generally granted by the Sixth Amendment, said that's a Republican talking point. So this core constitutional right that, well, actually it's a God-given right that's reflected in the Constitution, and Nancy Pelosi thinks is a Republican talking point. So that's the sort of attitude we're facing here, where the rule of law and your God-given rights are taking a second seat to this partisan craziness coming out of the House of Representatives, all geared to targeting President Trump.
Mm-hmm. So is President Trump's rights being squashed, would you say?
Well, as president, his prerogatives are being attacked and undermined, so there's that constitutional concern in terms of the structure of our government that's being undermined. And on top of that, he's a citizen. And he's being victimized the way any other citizen would be victimized when you have a Congress going around and trying to investigate them without any guardrails in terms of due process.
Mm-hmm. So what is Judicial Watch doing to investigate this inquiry?
Well, when you look at what this is really about, for instance, the issue of Adam Schiff, who was he talking to, or who was his office talking to? He says he doesn't know, quote, the name of the whistleblower. Well, I don't think it is a whistleblower; it's a leaker. But we want to know what that person was up to. There's indications that the communication between Schiff's office and this leaker was illicit, meaning the person gave them information he wasn't allowed to under the law, and that he may have obtained the information illicitly under the law. So we're asking questions under the Freedom of Information Act about that. And the name of the whistleblower, who I won't name because for fear of being banned by YouTube, is a person that seemingly has worked, well, if the name is who we think it is, he worked in the Obama White House and the Trump White House. So what we did was we looked at this person's name in the Obama White House visitor logs, which are the only visitor logs that are public right now. And we found who he was meeting with. And what was very interesting, and irrespective of whether he is the whistleblower or not, it's interesting, he was meeting with many Soros-tied individuals and groups, namely the Ukraine-supported organization, the Soros-supported organization in Ukraine that was behind some of this anti-Trump activity in the 2016 election. He met with the Soros Open Society Foundation official directly and other Ukrainian related meetings. We don't know exactly what he was doing in the Trump administration. So my question is, why is it the Democrats and the coup cabal, as I call them, avoiding asking for whether he's a whistleblower or not? Why is the guy who was running Ukraine policy at the National Security Council, CIA top-level guy, why isn't he being questioned? He worked both in the Obama administration and the Trump administration. So this is a double protection racket. They don't want him talking because it would involve and implicate the Obama White House, I'm convinced, in this whole scheme against President Trump with Ukraine. And of course, they don't want him talking, in my view, because Schiff is implicated because he talked to him improperly, he and his office, and then lied about it.
Now, you've said that the impeachment inquiry is being weaponized to target President Trump. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Well, it's not a constitutional process in the sense that the founders intended. Look, you have a bunch of politicians who do impeachment. I mean, that's the reality. It's going to be a little bit political. If a president is under impeachment, it's usually not going to be initiated by his friends. I acknowledge that. But here, they're just making up issues as a pretext to try to remove him from office. And what I think is most interesting about what Schiff is doing is that he's been caught in lie after lie. He's essentially called the president a traitor, said he had evidence of Russia collusion, never came up with it. And now he's saying that he's repeatedly misstated what went on with President Trump in Ukraine. And I'm beginning to wonder, especially after the debacle of this hearing this week, whether his fellow Democrats are beginning to wonder, why is Schiff's been selling us a big lie on Trump all this time? Mm-hmm. He keeps on saying he's got the goods, and he ain't got the goods. There's no evidence. There's no evidence. When you look at these hearings yesterday, and I encourage people not only to watch the hearings, but to look at the underlying transcripts to the degree they've been released. And they'll see, as I call it, the Gossip Girl impeachment. A bunch of bureaucrats complaining and kvetching about the boss. Mm-hmm. But you know what? We elect the boss. So we appreciate their complaints, mm-hmm. But just because the bureaucrats don't want the boss to run policy as the Constitution gives them the power to do, that's no reason to impeach and remove him from office. And if there's anyone who's the whistleblower, it's Donald Trump. It's pretty clear on Ukraine. He was blowing the whistle on Ukraine corruption and their intervention with the Obama and Clinton gangs to try to take him out. Mm-hmm. And for his calling attention to what is in essence democratic corruption, you've got the Democratic Party abusing the powers entrusted to them by the American people as they control the House to try to remove him from office. It's a constitutional crisis, and it's an attack on all of us, not just Trump.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tom, what else did you find in these White House logs concerning the Ukrainian issue?
Well, our investigators did an exhaustive analysis of the Obama White House visitor logs, and there are thousands and thousands of pages. They're like this big. And you know who else shows up in them? Alexandra Chalupa. Who is Alexandra Chalupa? She's the DNC operative who was working with the Ukrainians to dig up dirt on then candidate Trump to try to make his life miserable during the campaign. And she visited the White House 27 times. Now, some of those may have been for parties, but some of those visits were substantive, and it looks like they were related to Europe. So between the alleged whistleblowers' activities in the Obama White House and Chalupa's activities in the Obama White House, boy, it ties the Obama White House to this effort by Ukraine to interfere in our elections. Remember what the Ukrainians did. You had a group associated with the Ukrainian government at the time, Soros-connected group, it looks like, released the Black Ledger, tying some President Trump's then campaign manager, Paul Manafort, to some Ukrainian political parties and payments. And then you had this alliance with the DNC to get dirt on Trump. You had a Ukrainian official actually pen an op-ed attacking President Trump, or then candidate Trump. And then you had a Ukrainian official write an op-ed actually attacking Donald Trump. So the Ukrainians knew they were involved in the campaign and were worried about it after Trump won. And who were they working with? They were working with the Obama administration. Remember Nellie Ohr and the Clinton Fusion GPS spy ring? Judicial Watch has the document. You can go on our website at judicialwatch.org and see all the documents that Nellie Ohr were sending to the Justice Department and FBI illicitly through her husband, Bruce Ohr, on Ukraine. So Clinton herself was using Ukraine info to try to take out President Trump. And then you have the Associated Press pushing Ukraine information to try to undermine President Trump by going after Paul Manafort. So you've got the anti-Trump media, Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration. I mean, the list is just longer, and it gets longer and longer in terms of those who are all in alliance with Ukraine. You have to remember, Ukraine was kind of the pathway seen by the anti-Trumpers, the Mueller operation, Fusion GPS, to get to President Trump. And so President Trump starts asking questions, what was going on there? And of course, what does the coup cabal try to do? Remove him from office. Why are they trying to do it? To protect themselves from the answers to those questions, which to me, in theory, would lead to prosecutions.
Now, Tom, there seems to be a lot of secrecy around the whistleblower. Can you delve into that for us?
Well, you know, I borrow the line from Lloyd Benson. I've worked with whistleblowers. I know whistleblowers. Whistleblowers have been friends of mine. And Amelia, this is no whistleblower. He's a leaker. He obtained information, it looks to me, based on the circumstantial and other public evidence out there, illicitly from someone in the White House. They wanted to leak the contents of the president's call, which was classified, and they recognized the legal and criminal liability in doing that, so they tried to tie it up in a whistleblower complaint to pretend that legitimized it, and it really didn't. So not only are they're not only protecting Adam Schiff by keeping the whistleblower, the name of the whistleblower quiet, they're protecting basic investigation of potential government corruption here, because there's been findings he's not a whistleblower. The law doesn't protect his identity anyway, and it certainly doesn't protect his communications with Adam Schiff. So when Adam Schiff says, I don't know the name of the whistleblower, well, his staff does. And if his staff does, he's responsible. And he lied about whether his office was in contact with the whistleblower, so he's got to cover up to worry about. And of course, the whistleblower himself needs to, I think, be held accountable as well, because there are real questions about what he was doing.
Now, Tom, where do these impeachment inquiry hearings go from here?
Well, I think it's essentially collapsed in terms of gaining any support from the American people. They had their big shot with these two witnesses who just talked about second and third hand information and complained about the president's policy that they didn't like. It's just going to get, there's not much else out there. And it's going to get worse for the Democrats. They're going to have an ambassador come in who wasn't there during the call, so she has nothing to add. She's going to complain that she was removed. Now, of course, Judicial Watch has information that she was improperly directing the monitoring of President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, a whole slew of Fox News hosts, reporters John Solomon and Sarah Carter, and other reporters. So I'd like to know what her answers to those questions are. I think she was asked about that directly, and she said, well, I didn't know specifically who was being monitored, and I thought it was okay. But we do know from our own reporting that the State Department told them to stop because it was illegal. Mm-hmm. So that's their other big witness. And then you have people like Colonel Vindman, who has so many issues. Again, another bureaucrat who thinks he knows better than the president. This is a deep state coup, and it's represented by Defense Department people, by State Department people, and by individuals working in the White House. The president is surrounded by people who want to see him driven from office, whether licitly or illicitly.
Now, Tom, how do you think everything's going to shake up in the House?
I don't know if they can even pass an impeachment resolution at this point. I think the Democrats are asking, as I said earlier, what has Schiff been selling us? There's nothing there. And there's nothing there to warrant the removal of the president from office. And my guess is they don't even have the votes now to remove him from office. And I don't see these hearings gaining them any additional votes. So I would encourage any Americans concerned about this to call their members of Congress, communicate with their senators and congressmen. They can call them at 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121 to be clear, and let them know what they think. I mean, the voters have to make their voices heard here. It could be that the president is not impeached if things continue to go the way they are. But you know, on the other hand, Nancy Pelosi and the anti-Trump media are fanatics in this area. Adam Schiff is willing to break all the rules, violate the president's rights. So whether they will power through the public opposition and maybe even internal opposition, we'll see. But you know, if you had asked me last week whether the president's going to be impeached, I would have said absolutely. Now, I ain't so sure.
Now, Tom, we have some new documents about Hillary Clinton. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, well, we finally got some emails, or we did get some additional emails about what Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were up to, and they were the corrupt FBI officials who had that weird affair going on that were anti-Trumpers and pro-Hillary Clinton while they were running the Russia investigation and investigating Hillary Clinton. And there are a lot of documents here, and the documents show that when Hillary Clinton said, "I didn't send any classified information," Peter Strzok sent an email essentially saying, "Oh yeah, she did," and there are 9 or so email chains where they're marked classified. So you've got evidence that the FBI knew in real time that Hillary Clinton was misstating the truth, to put it charitably, about her misuse of her emails. And then you see the FBI documents here show, and these again, Strzok Page emails, show they were very much aware of that infamous tarmac meeting between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch and how awful it was. And they were sending around articles about how awful it was. Because as you know, that Bill Clinton was under investigation in theory, and so was his wife. And the Attorney General was meeting with him on in an airplane in a tarmac. The only reason we knew about that is because a local reporter in Arizona caught him doing it. It would have been covered up otherwise. So you've got all this evidence that the FBI knew Hillary Clinton was not being truthful about her emails, that the investigation was corrupted and compromised as a result of the Attorney General of the United States at the time, Loretta Lynch, hobnobbing with Bill Clinton. And then you have all these other documents where they're bending over backwards to accommodate all these lawyers, all these witnesses who were implicated in destroying evidence for Hillary Clinton, destroying those emails. And then you've got this startling email, I forget, but it's big, that they said, well, hey, James Comey, he wants to wrap this up in June of 2016. This was before even Hillary's question. So again, further confirmation, it was wired, it was rigged, and it was corrupt, the email investigation. Of course, Judicial Watch is still conducting this email investigation. It's probably more important than ever because the Justice Department and Congress have completely dropped the ball. Because we've been taking testimony of witnesses in a federal court case. The court granted us discovery into Hillary Clinton's email misuse and Benghazi. And now the court's figuring out whether to let us question Hillary Clinton, which is we'll see what happens over the next few months on that.
Well, thank you, Tom. And thank you for tuning in into Inside Judicial Watch. If you like this video, please visit our website, donate to our work, and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you.